This is gonna be a quick and dirty welding project. I would say a beginner welding project. I've got this space where I need to put a computer and I wanna get it done really fast. I'm gonna film it, see how it goes, and hopefully you can follow along and see just a super beginner welding project to show how quick and fun and easy welding can be. So the table, I wanted around like 29.5 inches tall. I think my initial plan is to put some plywood on there and see that I like that. So I think I'm gonna cut the legs down to 28 inches long. I'm gonna 3D print a couple of feet for it, at least that's my plan. And then that can take up any slack if I wanna change the height of it later if it ends up being too low. Okay, we've had a slight change of plans. Instead of using this piece over here, I found this piece of wood. It's already got finish on it. It's out of construction lumber, but it's from Indiana, so it's nice southern yellow pine, very straight grained. It's much smaller than I was wanting, but I still think it's gonna work for me, and the top is done and already looks nice. No issue doing a plywood top, but again, this is more of a welding practice and getting something fast, so I'm gonna go with this. I'm just using whatever scrap metal I have. In this case, it's 1.5 inch tubing and also 1.25 inch tubing. If you have a metal wholesale place by you, go buy it there. It is so much cheaper. I've got everything all clamped up, ready to go. I drilled some holes in the sidebars so that I can screw it to the wood. Much easier to do that beforehand. I had to do it through a couple of drill bits because my drill press just isn't strong enough. And then I also ground off the corners and the edges and then sanded, cleaned up the metal so that the weld should go good. So now I'm just gonna put on my helmet and weld the base up. I've got the sides all welded up. I squared it up with some clamps at the top, and then I put these blocks here at the bottom just to keep everything square. I'm gonna put a couple of tacks in there first just to hold things good before I do the full-on welds. I moved the table base outside so I can grind down the welds that I did. They did not turn out very good. I started with the current too high and blew through it a little bit. Let's grind this down and then we can fix it up in the next step. After finishing up the grinding outside, I brought the table base inside, all set up. I'm gonna use some Bondo that I have left over from another project to fill in where I welded away the metal and melted it gone. Anyways, we'll fill those up, make it look okay. I'm not trying to do something super fancy here. I'm just learning this is a super easy beginner project. A little bit of welding, a little bit of woodworking, a little bit of 3D printing. That's what we're looking for here. That Bondo dried up, and I'm gonna use a file to give me the fillet that I'm looking for, and then I'll just sand down the rest of it with a random orbit sander and then a little bit of hand sanding, and I should be good to move on to the painting. After I sanded everything down to 120 grit on all the surfaces and all those edges, now it's time to move on to the cleaning and painting. I'm gonna use some acetone to wipe down the whole thing. I also found some blue gloves. Should have had those earlier. After I wipe it down, I'll use some primer. I've got this self-etching primer from Rust-Oleum. Used it before, I like it. And then I'm just gonna paint it in flat black after the primer is on there, and we'll be able to move on to the next step. Now what I want to do is I want to 3D print some feet on here. I've done that before and it works really well. I like to make it so it barely fits in where you actually have to hammer it in. There's a little bit of seam on the metal and that'll cut into the 3D print and really make sure that it holds in there tight. So I'm going to design that up, print it, and then put it on. All right, final step. I've got the top upside down. I need to bring the base on here, screw it in with my pen head screws, and the table will be all finished. We've been using the table for a couple of days and it's worked out great. It was super fun to do, really easy. It did take a little bit longer than I was hoping, mostly because the Bondo had to dry and the paint had to dry. But other than that, this was a fast project as well. If you have other ideas for some easy welding projects, let me know down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching and take care.